Hello, my friends. How are you? Happy holidays. Wishing you joy, healing, fulfillment of all your desires, peace, equanimity, lots of love. So, I'm waiting for everyone to come on. And today I wanted to discuss the connection between emotional well being and physical healing. Once again, I wanted to discuss the connection between emotional well being and physical well being. Ramanand Dikshit, Namaste. Okay, so first of all, what is an emotion? Not so easy to define, but we all know what an emotion is. We also call our emotions feelings. Feelings. I feel love. I feel joy. I feel frustration. I feel anger. I feel resentment. I feel inspired. I feel I know what to do, etc., etc. So you can see that emotions are referred to as feelings. So how to think of an emotion? Well, think of an emotion as a thought linked to a sensation in the body. Once again, think of an emotion as a thought that's linked to a sensation in the body. But actually, thoughts are also entangled with language, words. We use words as speech to express ourselves and writing to express ourselves. So words are symbolic representations of experience, which includes emotions. And language, emotions, words, thoughts are entangled. But if you go a little deeper, our perceptions of the world are also entangled. So let's say we are at a cocktail party and I tell you, just one person, you know that guy there, he's wanted by the government because he is accused of being part of the mafia and he's guilty of money laundering. I say that to you, and then someone else comes into the same party and I point to the same person and say to him, you know that guy, he was just nominated for the Nobel Prize for Peace. Now two of you will perceive that person totally differently. So perception, language, sensation, feeling, thought, the images constructed in our mind, context, meaning, relationships, and the story we are telling ourselves all the time, which is actually manifesting as our internal dialogue, is actually the entanglement of all experience. And all experience is in that form: sensations, perceptions, images, feelings, thoughts. Everything else is a story. Okay, so now that we, I hope, agree, and I can see most of you are agreeing, then let's go further into the orchestration of emotions and how they affect our biology. So if you look at my hand right now, and if you look at it in profile, this is the way the brain looks in profile. This is the cerebral cortex, this could be the spinal cord, this is the midbrain, and when I open my hand, you see this part, this would be a good representation of the limbic system. The limbic system is that part of our brain that orchestrates biological responses in response to emotions. So this is the limbic system, and it's connected to a part of the brain which is called the hypothalamus, And the hypothalamus in turn is connected to a part of the brain called the pituitary organ. The pituitary is the master endocrine gland, and it in turn regulates the activity of other endocrine glands, including the endocrine glands that we call ovaries and testes, the reproductive organs. It also, pituitary gland regulates the adrenal gland, the production of hormones such as adrenaline and cortisol, and then also something called norepinephrine. But it also regulates the activity of the thyroid gland, and essentially is a regulator of all the organs in the body through chemical messengers, growth factors, growth hormones, neuropeptides, serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, opiates, and all these biological activities are entangled through the limbic system, which responds to what's happening as thought in the cortical system, which then orchestrates activity through the hypothalamus and the pituitary and all the endocrine glands of the body. So of course now, for the last 50 years or so, everyone understands that stress can cause inflammation in the body. Chronic stress can cause inflammatory markers to go up in the body, but chronic stress leads to chronic disease as well. And stress is nothing other than the perception of physical or psychological, emotional threat. Anytime you perceive that you're being threatened, then there's a whole cascade of events that happens in the body. So adrenaline goes up, noradrenaline goes up, blood pressure goes up, heart rate goes up, platelets get sticky, there's inflammation in the body, the pupils dilate, and you get into what is called the fight-flight response to protect yourself. So stress, in a way, is a response to protect yourself. It's a survival response. But when it is inappropriate, of course, it leads to disease. So now we know that all stress ultimately is leading to chronic disease directly or indirectly. Directly through inflammation and through biological turbulence and through a movement away from homeostasis. Homeostasis is self-regulation. And so stress does that. And so, even though we say that infection is caused by bacteria or viruses, that cancer is the unbridled replication of cells that have forgotten how to die, etc., that diabetes can be a result of obesity, type 2 diabetes, or type 1, which is lack of insulin production. These are all precipitating factors, but there's also the fact that agents that cause disease are also agents that act as precipitating factors in a susceptible host. And a susceptible host is somebody who's stressed, who's experiencing fear, and then is unable to connect with the web of relationship, the entangled web of relationship, the highest expression of which is love. So these days, everybody is familiar with the phrase that fear is the opposite of love. Love heals, and fear actually creates distress, dis-ease, and ultimately disease. And I have said many times, based on the insights of geneticists, that stress is the number one epidemic of our time, and that only 5% of disease-related gene mutations are fully penetrant. So stress can manifest as fear, which is the anticipation of pain in the future, anxiety. The memory of pain in the past is called anger. The desire to get even is called hostility. The tendency to blame yourself is called guilt. And guilt, of course, results in humiliation and all kinds of poor self-image. So all of this results in the depletion of energy, which we call depression. And therefore depression, guilt, humiliation, anxiety, fear, anger, hostility are all entangled feelings that come from the perception of threat, which comes from the perception of I am by myself, I am alone, there's me, and then there's the rest of the universe. Okay, so now that's one extreme. The other extreme would be what we call unconditional, pure love. But in between, there's a range of emotions. So when we feel what another person feels, we call that empathy. When that feeling of empathy evokes the desire to alleviate the suffering of another person, or even yours, that's called compassion. Compassion is preceded by empathy. Empathy is feeling what others feel. Compassion is the desire to alleviate suffering. And that desire to alleviate suffering, compassion, can lead to love, which is the desire for unity consciousness. And ultimately, pure love is enlightenment. But along the way, love has many flavors: attraction, infatuation, focused awareness, acceptance, appreciation, affection. All these are flavors of love. They can also lead to deep communion, intimacy, including sexual intimacy, surrender, passion, which is the archetypal awakening of the masculine and the feminine in its highest expression, and ultimately even that archetypal passionate awakening of the soul can lead to ecstasy. Ecstasy literally means ektasis, stepping out. And once you step out into unity consciousness, then ecstasy is supreme joy, supreme love, supreme peace, and transcendence and flow. Ecstasy can be physical, as in sensual and sexual and sensory delight. It can be archetypal in the awakening of the divine masculine and feminine, and it can be sacred, where the soul becomes one with universal spirit. So you see, that's the other extreme. Pure love, pure knowing, pure awareness, unlimited, timeless, and beyond. That's the ultimate healing. Ultimate healing. No fear, including no fear of death, because death happens to sensations and not to the awareness that is constantly modifying itself and recycling as sensations. So pure love is pure homeostasis. Pure homeostasis is pure self-regulation. And pure self-regulation is healing. The word healing, the word holy, the word whole all mean the same thing. So healing is the return of the memory of wholeness. And when we return to exactly where we started from, then we are holy and we are healed. We are holy and we are healed. And then we don't make these distinctions. Brain, mind, hypothalamus, limbic system, pituitary, endocrine organs, different bodily organs, tissues, cells, DNA, epigenetics. All these are words to show the entanglement of relationship. Molecules are entangled atoms. Atoms are entangled particles. Particles are entangled possibility waves. And entangled possibility waves exist in pure consciousness, all as one being, being in love, being in love. And our body is made out of consciousness and therefore expresses whatever is happening in consciousness. The tone of your voice, your facial expressions, whether you're smiling or scowling, whether your brow is furrowed or not, as I said, the tone of your voice, your body language, your gestures, these are all symbolic representations of entanglement of experience. And the highest experience, the highest truth, is being in love. Everything represents that, including, the tone and volume of your voice. When people are angry, they scream, they shout, and they get contracted, very localized. When they're not stressed, then their voice is normal right now, like mine. Okay. When they are falling in love, then the voice becomes softer. And sometimes people who are totally in love, they only whisper. And then when they become love, when they become the being in love, even the whispering goes away. They become silent. And in that silence is pure knowing, pure love, pure healing. We are holy and we are healed. So let us make this an intention as we move into the new year. Let us all be holy and let us all be healed in love, being in love.